onto my I was trying to climb up onto my couch to hang a sheet to keep the sun out, and I lost my balance and fell down on my back, and now I kind of have an ego bruise. But
Oh no. Are you okay?
yeah,
Did you just
I
fall
think
down?
so. Yeah,
All
I
right.
just kind of got scraped in a little, but uh, I'm signing in. Hold on.
All right. Sorry about that. So for the recording, this is working group 2.1, the Empathica group user experience and interface. And we are going to look at some updates to the user interface that Catherine Bloom has implemented. And then we're going to look at some of the personas that I've created for the next round. And I've got an idea of how we might be able to expand our testing. So I want to bounce some ideas off all of you. And then we have a conference coming up. So I want to talk about how we might want to organize the presentation and the workshop and get everyone's feedback on that. And then Ava has started some empathy transcript analysis. Maybe we'll recap what we're doing there and how we might evolve our thinking on empathy assessments by having user inputs. We've got sort of a mechanical way to score it, but we probably need a patient first approach to evaluating it. So that's the agenda for today. So let's see what Catherine has. You okay, Catherine? Oh, just make sure you're okay because if you need to get a bandage or something.
Yeah.
Hey,
Oops, hold on. Okay.
okay.
So I'm going to show I'm going to show this document first, which I put into the I put it into 2.2 or the working group 2 group on DCI network, so you can also download it. But basically, what I did was on the chatbot, I added two options to set both the empathy levels and the literacy levels of the replies that a user will get back. So obviously, right now we're using a set persona. So it's always going to be um, that person's data. But in regards to the data that comes back from Gemini, it's now going to be tailored to whatever the user set in their settings. Right now, um, we have it so that the user can't access the settings page, but we're going to change that so that they can actually change the literacy level as well. That was something we talked about yesterday in our other meetings. So I'm going to make that change too. And I just kind of wanted to show you here. This is just kind of an example of um, how we're basically telling each empathy and literacy level to act. And this was both just a mix of me coming up with the description and also kind of refining it via an LLM as well. So it's open to suggestions. And then I also have two testing empathy and literacy levels. Um, those won't be in the final product. That's just so I can get an opposite reaction so that I can see if it's actually working. So that's just there for transparency. So you can see, like, I have three basic levels: low, medium, and high. Low will basically just kind of give the facts without emotional language. Medium is kind of what we're doing right now, which is just kind of a good balance between the two. And then high kind of prioritizes um, uh, supportive and compassionate responses while still maintaining facts as well. And then down here, literacy is much the same. I have basic, intermediate, high, and clinical. So basic just basically uh, assumes that the user doesn't know anything. It will avoid medical jargon and then just do clear explanations. Intermediate, again, is kind of the balancing act between the two, kind of what we have now. And then high would be, using technical language, assuming the user knows something, and and you know, not really focusing on explaining a lot of it. And then clinical is obviously what it sounds like. It basically just assumes the user has a clinical knowledge and won't really explain anything to the layperson as well. So those are basically the options. So if I go back into the chat bot and then come here, I kind of have some debugging down the bottom just so I can see what is actually being sent to the chatbot. But you'll see this settings option up in the top. And then if you come down here, so you'll have your standard options, which were always there. And then you'll have two new things for literacy level and empathy level. And you can see I was testing, so it was on one of the testing ones. But for now, I'm going to select high empathy and basic language. So when I ask a question and get a response back, it should explain a lot of the responses and go into detail to help me understand. So I'm going to click submit, and then I'm going to ask it, what are my medications? And then once I do this, it's going to come back and basically give me a list of all my medications and then actually explain kind of what each one are for, um, you know, what each category will do for me. And then because I have it on high empathy, it's going to add in kind of ensuring compassionate responses and em- em- empathetic language as well. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of what I was working on here.
So the last two that the confrontational, Betsy, we're not going to use that at all. We just want to see how the system would react if
Yeah,
we did gave a different prompts. We probably will say don't answer in a confrontational style and give it examples of that.
I would be
Uh,
exactly.
curious. I would be curious what the outputs look like in that though. Um,
It's mostly a lot of it, like the anti empathy is basically just not doing any emotional language. And then confrontational, it's not, it's a little different, but it just basically, if you have to really like say like, my friend told me I could drink paint or something, and then it would um, challenge the user on that. But it's really
mhm.
situational, and it's
Yeah.
really just so I could assume that, not assume that it was working, but just to actually see something different. So
Cool.
Would the user be able to change the empathy and literacy levels mid-conversation?
Not right now. Right now, when you change it, it clears the conversation. But we did, sorry, my headphones make things muffled. We did talk about adding like up here to toggle the thing without erasing the current conversation. So that's going to be something I'm going to be adding on as well.
The can you show the user profile page where they can change those settings?
Oh, yeah. So that is, yeah. So this is what sorry. So this is the profile page. There are the standard options, and then here there are two drop downs as well. The regular users won't see these options, but they'll see the first four. So the regular users, we have it set up so they can't change the persona or the chatbot. Um, uh, and we did that because we were testing certain personas. But they will see the first four options. So, and then they can select from, either the four literacy levels. And if they're a regular user, they'll only see the first three. I'm an admin user, so I'm going to see these last two as well. So,
I will say I like how you explain like what high empathy means, what the literacy levels mean.
yeah.
Because I don't know that the average person would know how like which one to pick. So I like the explanations.
Yeah, on this page for the forward facing, I made it so that you can easily see what would happen. And then on this page, it's just basically listing.
Yeah.
This one probably won't stick in the final product, but this is just so I can make sure that we're actually sending it to the chatbot and getting it back. So,
So I would
yeah.
actually leave it only because if a patient is going through a conversation and doesn't like something, and they may not remember what they picked,
Yeah, that's true, Betsy.
they could go back and then at least change it. Like if they think that they're an advanced literacy level, right? And then they're reading the outputs and saying, oh, actually, I don't understand this. To change it, they would have to know what they had picked to
Yeah.
begin with. So I would actually argue to leave it, but
We could also instead kind of maybe put it like next to the submit button, kind of in red. Um, so that as they're writing a message, they can see it like it would be like in red and bold here. And then kind of like give a to change it, click here or something.
I actually like the way it's set up right now, to be honest.
Okay, yeah, that's fine too. Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It's like there, but it's not the main focal point.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my opinion.
We can try different things, yeah. And I mean, uh, we can also leave it in, that's fine too. So, and then just for a hint, excuse me, sorry.
Catherine.
For a hint of the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm also going to add another option on here, which would be like a just a text box, which would give the user the ability to enter some static information like about themselves that would be sent on each request so they don't have to basically ask it each time. Um, they could just kind of put it in their profile, like any medications that they're taking, anything about themselves, like I'm 40 years old or whatever. Um, and then that would get sent each time so they don't have to remember to ask it each time as well. And this is something that I found um, that I actually took from Claude as well, because they have like a personalization checkbox or a text box that you can enter information about yourself, and it uses that for each query. So I'm going to also add that for probably the next meeting as well too. So.
So, Catherine, I just have one question. For the different literacy level and empathy level responses, have you tried asking like some of the common questions that we've used to like assess empathy and literacy levels and done like a side-by-side comparison? So we can see like the changes in vocabulary or like sentence structure or anything like that?
Yeah, personally, I haven't thought to do that, but that's something that I can do. Um, only just because I didn't think to do that. So,
Okay, yeah, that'd be a good thing because I can also help with that.
yeah,
It'll
I
be,
was just basically asking like normal, like regular things, but um, that would definitely be a good use case as well. So,
yeah.
especially for like the clinical versus basic.
Yeah, like especially like some of the not sure if you guys remember when we had those like sample questions when we first did the testing and we assigned people questions to ask. So we could use those as like a template
Yeah.
or something to look at like the different degree of empathy and
So
literacy.
this is what I was thinking of doing for the next round is we've put 30 different personas, and we could create a grid for different settings for these literacy levels and use different personas and have a couple of clinically relevant questions for each persona, depending on what the persona history is described, but also an expectation of what the literacy level should be. And then we can then see what comes back from the LLM and use those literacy level scales. We probably need to standardize on 1A, but we've used the whole pile of them, but we should probably going forward just pick one, and we should probably have a debate over which one is the most useful for this type of project. So maybe we'll put that in the next evaluation meeting. Um, but that could give us sort of a measure for the empathy. We need a score for content accuracy. And then we, in terms of those options that you had, right, we should have specific criteria and then judge it based on some computational criteria, but also then have humans look at it and see whether we agree on the empathy rating, because um, humans might have a different, like human judges might judge the accuracy or empathy or level of detail differently based on these, uh, computational criteria. Um, but that way we could sort of have a broad range of tests and for that. And we've got prompt guardrails on, you should do this, do that. I think we need sort of testing across the board and see where the LLM has strengths, right? Can it is it accurate across the board, regardless of level of detail that it gives? Because some of them, maybe if they give shorter answer, may become more inaccurate. or maybe if they get too empathetic, they'll be very empathetic but not give enough detail. But we need some sort of uh, a standardized sort of test scenarios that we can use, and then we can try with multiple LLMs. And going forward, if once we release this chatbot, we need to find a way to sort of automate, like still have humans periodically test, but we're going to need to sort of automate how we monitor this thing to see whether it's uh, adjusting properly.
Yeah, like for the literacy stuff, that would be fine to automate, and then for any like empathy scoring, it'd be good to automate, but then periodically have like patients, providers,
Yeah,
users go over
Yeah.
and actually see like, okay,
yeah,
is it truly representative
yeah.
of, the
If we gave humans, like patients, the same scale that the machine is calculating, does the human rating match up with the numeric rating of empathy, right? Even though supposedly people have validated these scales, you know, they may not have validated in the context of a chatbot. I don't know how they evaluate. That's why we have to look at both for the literacy and the empathy scales, who has tested it in what scenario, and which one we suggest people should use going forward. Because we've been using a whole pile of them, but clearly we can't continue to use 10 different literacy scales and 5 different empathy scales. We need to sort of standardize on one, and we need to have some rationale. And so one of the rationales could be, does it match up with how humans
Perceive,
perceive
um,
the rating, right? We're kind of validating it again, but in the context of interactive um, media. The content thing is sort of probably for me the most worrying. How do you measure that the system isn't either saying things that were wrong or not saying things that it should have said, errors of omission? We'll need subject matter experts in the medications to review the transcripts. But how do you do it at scale when you've got like 10,000 patients using your chatbot? My thought was to have multiple LLMs review what the main chatbot is responding to flag potential errors. Um, but it could be like that all the LLMs could also not pick up the error. Like, how do we do? And there are different types of error. Like some of them, okay, maybe it forgot something, but maybe it's not critical. But other things might be critical that could lead to um, adverse events. So and it's everyone with AI that's patient facing is going to have this problem. How do you do real-time safety at scale? So, what are your thoughts, everybody, about how we should sort of tackle um, the testing, both short-term in fact for our next round of tests, and what what might be scalable if we wanted to monitor the quality of the output, say with 10,000 patients? What do you suggest strategies we should use?
So I'm wondering if for the safety issue at the scalable question, if there's some way to have patients like, and not certified, but like, and I realize this isn't going to catch every error, but if you generally know what medications you're on and you see a list, you kind of know, generally speaking, which ones are incorrect and are correct. And I wonder if there's some way to include the user in like saying this was correct or this wasn't, or there was an error. Um, I My other question, remind me, and I'm sorry for asking this. This medication list is being pulled from their medical record, is that right? Or are
No,
they?
we're using fictitious personas, but
No, I know that.
ultimately, yes, we'd like to be able to pull off the
Because so here's my issue with that is my medications in my medical record are always wrong. They're always wrong. So it's already gonna pull incorrect information.
yeah.
So you're then asking if the incorrect information is correct or incorrect, where it's gonna be incorrect. Um, and I'm not a cancer patient, so I, I would imagine that cancer patients' medications are more correct than somebody like me. Um, but I just wonder if there's some way to have the user engage in the safety
Yeah,
process.
yeah, I think, we can go ahead, Catherine. You go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, I was just going to address this because I think we talked about this and we had a line on the spreadsheet as well. Because I also thought that, um, like, just trusting the medical record, um, is never like a good idea. Just A, because like you said, mine is also wrong. And then B, also, then you get into basically sending um, medical data to a third party, in this case, Google. And then you have to get into privacy issues. So we have a line on the spreadsheet to bring up a new option on the front end side, the UI side, which would allow, similar to what we're doing for that personalization box, but also to kind of um, have like a picker, which would allow you to like search for your medications and select the ones that you're taking so you don't have to ask that each time. And then when you ask a question, it would gather all that information and send it with the query, but the user doesn't have to like, they only have to put it in once on their profile and be done with it. And then that way, all of the information would just be in our single contained app on the front end by entered by the user. So
Yeah, so long term, I think while you can pull technically the record from the medical record, it's going to be problematic because first you're going to have to get agreements with all the providers who where your record can sit. So if you see more than one provider, you may have um, we may need to authenticate with different healthcare providers, and then there's things that you may be buying over the counter, such as through retail pharmacies, and they often don't allow third parties to connect to their system. So it'll be a constant problem to maintain that list on the mobile app. I mean, I think if you connect to your main healthcare provider, you probably get most of your medications, but not all of them. And like I said, Betsy, there's always mistakes in there. So we've done a lot of work on user interface for how to select your medication, but it's still a long list. If you put in something like Tylenol, there's like 30 different choices depending on pill or liquid form or concentration, like dosage. And um, so I think going forward, probably a more useful way would be for, in addition to the electronic connection where possible, to also have the patient be able to point the app with a camera to your pill box, be able to also have conversational agents that allow you to sort of give the name of the medication in words pill form. But we need to find additional ways to make it easier, because I think our initial two ways of entering it manually through an interface is painful. Connecting it through FHIR is painful. And maybe using the camera and voice, uh, while not optimal, maybe from the patient's point of view, less technically painful to do. But it's still going to be an ongoing chore to figure out if that medication list in the profile of the patient is up to date. You know, but most patients, I think, if they saw a list of their medications, can recognize if the list is wrong. So we should try to make it easier for them to correct it. And I think voice would be a good way to, you could look at your app and say, hey, I'm not on that medication anymore, or I never was on that medication, take it off the list. So just the way the patient interacts with a pharmacist or a physician or the nurse when you go for a visit and they do medication reconciliation, that conversational agent could be with the chatbot. So that means we're going to need to add a voice, two-way voice interface to this app, probably sooner than later.
Was there one that we decided on
Um,
before, like the type of voice or something like that?
well, we were using a third-party software for the voice export. My hope was that the big LLM companies would provide
Yeah,
better voice like Gemma and ChatGPT and
I've been looking at the Google Gemini text to voice API that I want to experiment with next instead, because obviously that's, well, A, we're also using Gemini, but B, it's Google, so it's not just a random third party. So I want to experiment with that. That's one of the ones that I found. We're not actually using it yet, but that's going to be my next kind of goal to replace what we have now with that.
so Betsy, how do you go about maintaining your medications right now, if you don't mind me asking? Do you have a Word document or spreadsheet, or what technology do you use?
So, I full disclosure, I don't use anything. Um, I but it's very easy for me when I'm doing medication reconciliation to look at the list. Um, I would say this is sounds lame. I use the CVS app because that's where I get my prescriptions filled. So if I have a question about whether or not I've filled something, I can go back in my history and see like whether I've filled it, but I don't have a long list of medications, so um
It's not as
yeah.
challenging.
Yeah. I would say for me the hard thing is okay, so I developed lung issues after I had COVID. And I've gone through three different inhalers to try to find the one that works. And if you asked me why the first one didn't work, I couldn't tell you. I just know that I'm not on it. So that's kind of where I struggle, where you've tried something, it didn't work. And now a year later, somebody says to you, well, let's do that. And you're like, no, I know I've tried that, but I can't remember why I stopped it. Um, that's usually where I run into issues is trying to remember why I stopped something and moved on to something else. Um, it's more the historical information that I struggle with than like what I'm taking currently.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, our hope is that with this app and the backend that we're doing, you'd be able to have like your own personal health record where you'd be able to see your full history and annotate it. Um,
That would
yeah.
honestly be the most helpful, only between my daughter and I with like kind of more chronic type stuff. She has severe asthma too. Um, it's like you try stuff and you move on and you like recalling why you moved on or what that was about like years down the road is really difficult. Um, I mean, and even like in my medical record, my doctor's good about like if I have a reaction to something, he'll list it under allergies. So I have this horrifically long allergy list, which isn't all allergies, but it's like these are medications you should never take again because of whatever the reaction was to it. Um, because there's nowhere else to put that information. Um, and he was like, I just want to make sure that you like people don't keep give you any of these again. Um, and I will say I'm a little bit of an outlier. I'm the person that they list the side effects that are rare. That's me. So, um, I kind of live in this this world that is not the norm or the most common.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think every patient's story is different and unique and important. And I think to the extent that we can design our system flexible enough so people can track the things that are meaningful for them. Uh, and so our long-term goal is to really have this personal health record that allows you to track both your clinical record, anything you want to collect at home in terms of how your symptoms were, reasons why you took medications. And I think the chatbot will be sort of the way it can search your personal history and help you find that information in the spreadsheet because over time that record is going to be pretty long. And
yeah.
uh,
Can
so
I
it's
ask one other question? Is it possible, and this can be a longer range goal, it doesn't have to be immediate, like more and more medications are being prescribed off label or off usage. And I'm wondering if there's a way that at some point a patient could say, like, I'm taking X medication and the FDA has approved it for whatever reason, but I take it for
yes. Yeah, and that's
X.
yes, and that's sort of what we want to do is sort of allow patients to keep track of that information
Yeah,
and
that
share
would
it
be
with
super helpful.
and then share it with research groups, right? So if somebody wanted to
We would also have to make sure that it doesn't conflict with the guardrails that we're providing too. Because if we say, we would have to be explicit about um, safely allowing people to provide um, other drugs and, be cautious about the response that you give.
Meaning, like, if you're changing the reason why you're taking something, it would change the response from the chatbot.
Well, because I think right now in our guardrails, we basically say something to the lines of, only use FDA approved drugs in your responses and anything from like Daily Med or whatnot. But if we're going to have the ability to say, for the user to say something like, I take this drug, it's not FDA approved, etc. Um, and you're going to want to make it so that the chatbot will say, okay, well, in this case, I will give a recommendation or give a response on it. Kind of going around the initial guardrails that we did.
Hmm.
Unless I'm misunderstanding, but which is probably possible.
No, I hear your, I guess the medication doesn't change. It's just the reason why somebody's taking it. So I'm trying to think of one. Um, my inhaler, for example, I don't technically have asthma, but I use an inhaler every day, right? And so the medication information is the same. It's just the reason why I'm taking it is slightly different.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, in that case, that's something that, yeah, like how we're going to do on the profile where you list your medications. Maybe
Yeah.
you also
Yeah,
have
yeah,
a
yeah.
box that says reason why.
Yeah. Yeah. But like the I'm trying to imagine a scenario where the reason I'm taking it is different and that would change an output. Like I'm sure there is one, I just can't think of it. I would be curious too. I happened to just read an research article about the percentage of adults in the US using cannabis, which is increasing significantly as different forms become available, states legalize it, etc. And I would be curious because to me, that's an important supplement that people take that they might not consider an over-the-counter medication. It's clearly not a medication. I don't know that they would tell their provider they're using it, but it could impact other things. Anyway, it just got me thinking more about safety and because I think it was like put it this way, the rate was much higher than I ever would have expected. Um,
Yeah.
so that was just something that came up this week that I was reading about. And I'm not saying we need to add that to our plate, but I think for my understanding is for cancer patients, chronically ill patients, some of those products can relieve some symptoms. And so that would fall into that realm of, well, where do I put that I'm taking this? My doctor doesn't know. Anyway.
Yeah. And I think, well, two things. I think, A, that could definitely go on the profile as well. And maybe in that little text box for the personalization, you say, you kind of write, I am currently taking X, um, uh, however you say it, my doctor, um, unbeknownst to my doctor or something like that. But then that led me to my second thing, which I think if we're going to do something like in the case of like medical marijuana, you probably would also want to add like something on there like your location because there are different legalities about whether or not like it's available. So that I think for accuracy, the chatbot would have to know that so it can know like jurisdictions and everything. Um, but yeah, that's just kind of what I was thinking about.
So, I'm gonna have to head over to my next meeting, and sadly, I'm only gonna give you probably only about 15 seconds left of your day. But I really appreciate the input, and I think this gives us a lot of food for thought for the redesign, and we uh we'll summarize this, and then we'll come up with some more specific recommendations, and maybe we'll figure out what we're going to do in the next version, and then in subsequent versions. I think we need to take these ideas and put them into different releases for that. But so maybe once we do the minutes, Catherine and Ava, maybe the three of us can look at the timeline of how to integrate all of this. And
Sounds
then
good.
and then for the workshop, let's see how maybe we need to have everyone from all the groups together to think about the presentation and the workshop. But I like to structure the workshop in a way that helps us create lots of ideas but not only for the next year, for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Perfect.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.